Friday has a specific energy this week, and I want to describe it carefully before anything else because it's not the usual Friday energy, the unwinding, the relief of a week ending, the particular exhale of someone moving from obligation into something more open. This Friday has something underneath it, something that has been building quietly all week without announcing itself. A pressure that you might have been feeling in small ways, a slight restlessness, a background awareness that something is in motion, a quality of waiting that doesn't have an obvious object. You've been waiting for something without knowing what. That something has a name now. It arrives Friday night in a conversation through words spoken by someone who has been carrying this particular thing, this specific, unbelievable thing, for longer than you're going to realize when you first hear it. And the moment it lands, the moment the words actually reach you and your mind begins processing what you've just been told, there's going to be a very specific internal experience that I want to try to describe in advance. Because I think knowing what's coming, even partially, even without the specific details, might help you stay present for it rather than immediately retreating into the protective distance your system reaches for when something unexpected arrives. Let me describe the week leading up to this. Because Friday doesn't exist in isolation. And what I keep finding when I sit with your energy right now is a whole texture to these days. Not dramatic, not obviously significant from the outside, but internally for you in the specific private landscape of your own awareness. These days have had a quality. Things have been surfacing, old thoughts, particular memories, the kind of thing that appears in the mind without obvious provocation, a face, a moment, a feeling from a specific chapter of your past that you haven't consciously been thinking about. And you've been noting these surfacings with that particular Virgo quality of internal observation, filing them, wondering if they mean something or if the mind is just doing what minds do when something in the unconscious is processing toward the surface. They mean something. The mind has been preparing you, not for something catastrophic. I want to be precise about that because I don't want this to land with a quality of dread. The surfacings aren't warnings. They're more like the interior equivalent of the body stretching before something requires its full range of motion. A getting ready that happens below consciousness. Something is about to require your full range. The person, I want to try to describe who this is without being so specific that it stops resonating for the range of people watching. Because this reads differently for different people, and I don't want to impose a particular identity on someone your life is going to confirm. What I keep getting is someone who is not a stranger. That's the first thing. Not someone arriving from nowhere. Someone with context, with history in your life, however much or little, whatever form that history takes. Someone who knows enough about you that what they're about to tell you carries a particular weight. Because it's not just information delivered by a neutral source. It's information delivered by someone whose relationship to you means something. And that relationship, whatever it is about to change shape. Not end, change shape. Because what they tell you on Friday night is going to alter the way you understand certain things between you, is going to add a dimension to something that previously felt flat, is going to take something you thought you had fully mapped and reveal that the map was missing significant territory. Hold on. Because I keep getting something about this person's experience of carrying this. And I want to describe it because I think it matters for how you receive what they bring. It has been heavy. Whatever this thing is, this piece of information or confession or revelation, it has not been light to carry. They didn't decide casually to bring this to you. There was a period, possibly a long one, where they debated it, turned it over, examined it from the angle of what happens if I say this, what changes, what risks, what I could lose versus what I might gain, what I owe this person versus what I owe myself. And that internal debate, that sustained, exhausting, private deliberation has reached its conclusion. Friday night is the conclusion. And what I keep finding about why Friday, why this specific moment, it's not random. Something happened recently that shifted the balance of that debate, that tipped the weight from not yet toward now. That made the cost of continued silence suddenly feel larger than the cost of speaking. Something made it necessary, not comfortable, necessary. There's an image that keeps coming through, and I want to share it. A photograph that has been in someone's possession for a long time, kept somewhere specific, not hidden exactly, but not displayed, in a drawer or a folder or the kind of private place that requires intention to access. And every so often, they take it out, look at it, return it. Friday night, they're taking it out and handing it to you. Not the literal photograph, the thing the photograph represents, the kept thing, the private thing, the thing they've been accessing quietly and returning and not quite being ready to share. They're ready now. And the thing about finally seeing what someone has been keeping, the specific experience of being shown something that lived in private for a long time before it was offered to you, is that it arrives with its own history, its own weight of having been held, its own quality of something finally released. You're going to feel that weight when it comes. I want to describe the actual moment of hearing it, not the content that belongs to your specific life. And I'm not going to presume to know its exact shape, but the experience of receiving it, the phenomenology of the moment. There's going to be a beat, a specific, strange beat of silence inside you, not external silence necessarily. The conversation will still be happening around you, but an interior silence. The particular kind that falls when something significant is landing and the mind hasn't yet organized a response, where the processing is happening faster than the producing of reaction, and in the gap between receiving and responding, there's just a beat of pure experience. And in that beat, several things will be true simultaneously. You won't fully believe it yet. That's the first thing. Not because you doubt the person, that's not quite it. Because the information is reorganizing something, and reorganization takes a moment. The brain needs time to adjust the picture, to place the new information where it belongs, to understand how everything else shifts in response to it. And while that adjustment is happening, there will be something that feels like vertigo. Not fear, not pain, the specific disorienting experience of the ground rearranging while you're standing on it. The more I sit with this, the more I keep coming back to something about what this revelation actually is. And let me try to describe the categories, because this reads differently for different people watching, and the specifics matter. For some of you, this is something about how someone feels, a confession of feeling that has been contained possibly for a very long time that is finally being released. Something about love or wanting, or the specific quality of regard that someone has been holding for you privately while showing you a different face publicly. And the reason you won't believe it isn't because it seems impossible. It's because you'll realize you should have known, will look back through the history between you and see it suddenly and clearly running underneath everything like a current you were standing in without knowing it was a current. And that retroactive seeing will be as significant as the revelation itself. For others of you, this is something different, not romantic, something more circumstantial. Information about a situation, something that has been affecting your life, your decisions, your understanding of how things are, that turns out to be different from how you believed it to be. Something was not what it appeared. And this person who has been in proximity to both the truth and to you has been holding the gap between those two things for reasons they've had to justify to themselves, have had to decide were sufficient. And they've reached the point where those reasons no longer feel sufficient. So they're telling you, and for others of you, it's something else entirely, something I can feel the shape of, but not the specific content of, something that falls outside both those categories but shares their quality, information that reorganizes, that takes something you were navigating in one direction and reveals that the direction needs to change. Not because you were wrong necessarily, because you were working with incomplete information. And the completion of that information changes the map. Whatever form this takes for you, the experience of receiving it is going to be the same. That beat of interior silence, that vertigo of rearranging ground, that strange mixture of I can't believe this and somehow I already knew. Wait, because there's something about the somehow I already knew part that I want to stay with, because I think it's actually the most important thing in this reading and I don't want to move past it too quickly. Your intuition had this, not the specifics, not the full picture, but something, a quality of sensing that something in the relevant area of your life was not completely as it appeared. A background awareness, possibly one you'd filed as anxiety or overthinking, or your tendency to read too much into things that was actually accurate, perception operating without sufficient data to become conscious, knowledge. And when you hear what you're about to hear on Friday night, one of the things that's going to land alongside the information itself is the recognition that your system was already pointing at it, already registering it as significant, already trying to bring your attention there. And the feeling that comes with that recognition, the specific feeling of your own intuition being retrospectively confirmed, is complicated. Part vindication, part frustration at yourself for not trusting it more completely, part something softer than either of those, something like, I knew, and I didn't let myself know it. That's not self-criticism. That's self-knowledge arriving. I want to talk about your response, not what you should say that's yours to find in the moment, but the quality of the response, the interior orientation you bring to it. Because your first instinct is going to be to process before responding. That's Virgo. That's the specific way your mind works under significant conditions, inward before outward, analysis before expression, the building of a complete picture before the attempt to communicate anything about it. And that instinct is going to bump up against the reality of another person sitting across from you who has just made themselves very vulnerable, who has handed you something they've been holding for a long time and is now in the specific exposed way of someone who has just released something significant, waiting to understand what happens next. They're going to need something from you before you finish processing. Not a conclusion, not a fully formed response, just acknowledgement, the specific communication that what they said landed, that you received it, that they didn't just speak into air. You don't have to know what you think yet. You just have to let them know you heard them. That's the one thing Friday night requires of you in the immediate moment. Everything else, the processing, the analysis, the arriving at what this means and what it changes, that can happen after. There's something about the conversation itself, the way it unfolds, the space around it, that I want to describe. It doesn't happen in a planned setting. That's what I keep getting. This isn't a sit-down conversation that was scheduled, that had preamble, that both of you walked into knowing it was going to be significant. It starts as something else, an ordinary Friday night thing, the kind of interaction that doesn't announce its own significance. And then somewhere in the middle of it, in a pause, in a moment of lowered guard, in the specific quality of ease that certain Friday night environments create, something shifts, and the thing that's been waiting to be said finds its moment. Not because the conditions are perfect, because they're finally relaxed enough that the control loosens, that the careful management of what gets said relaxes slightly, that the thing being held gets slightly too heavy for the holding, and it comes out in whatever form it comes, whether careful or tumbling, whether measured or slightly more than intended, it comes out. And Friday night becomes the night you remember. I want to say something about what comes after. Not immediately after I've described that. After the Saturday morning version of this, when you wake up and the events of Friday are still there, fully present, and the processing that began in the moment has had hours to continue in sleep, Saturday morning is going to feel different, not resolved necessarily. Some things take longer than a night to resolve, but different. The specific difference of someone who has received significant information and whose interior landscape has already begun to reorganize itself around it. Things that seemed one shape on Friday morning will seem differently shaped on Saturday. Not worse, not better necessarily, different, more accurate, more aligned with what's actually true rather than what was previously visible. And there's a particular quality, and I want to name this because I think it's important, a particular quality of relief that comes even when the thing you've learned is complicated, even when it creates new questions alongside the answers it provides, even when the reorganization it requires is genuinely effortful. The relief of reality being more present than it was before, of the picture being closer to complete, of knowing more than you knew. For Virgo, for someone whose relationship with truth is as fundamental as yours, that relief is real, is significant, even when the truth is surprising, even when it's something you couldn't have predicted, even when it lands on a Friday night and rearranges the ground while you're standing on it. The last thing, you're going to be okay. I want to say that not as a platitude, but as a specific, grounded observation about who you are and what you're capable of. Because what's coming on Friday night, whatever its specific form, whatever the content of what you're about to be told, is something your system can handle, not without feeling it. Not without the processing and the recalibrating and the specific work of integrating something significant into your understanding of your own life. But handle, because you've navigated things before that required this kind of recalibration, things that arrived without warning and reorganized something important. And each time, not immediately, not without cost, but each time you integrated, you found the new shape of things, you adjusted your understanding and kept moving. This is no different, except in one way. This time the thing arriving isn't a loss, even if it's complicated, even if it requires navigation, even if the ground shifts in ways that are temporarily disorienting. What someone is bringing you on Friday night is a truth, and truth, real, unvarnished, finally being said truth, in the hands of someone like you is not a burden. It's the thing you've always been able to work with better than anything else. Let it land, let it be what it is. And then do what you always do with things that are real. Work with it. If something in this resonated, if a moment touched something true in a way that surprised you, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Tell me what landed, even just a few words. It means more than you know.